Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Coming at you with another video. We are going to be talking about 3 must-draft players for 2022 redraft fantasy football. No, it's been a minute. Just finished up all my Dynasty fantasy football content. Been trying to post some TikToks, some shorts. Have not been consistent at all, so sorry about that. But we're going to be diving back in, posting about a video a day, whether it's a YouTube short, whether it's an actually full-length video like this one. So please subscribe, please like, as we continue to grind into this redraft season. So my first must-draft player for 2022 fantasy football is going to be Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne, his ADP has risen over the last few weeks. If we look at Underdog, which I know is best ball, but if we look at Underdog, he's been going at the back end of the 3rd round. Earlier this offseason, if we were looking in the redraft best ball leagues, he was going anywhere between the middle of the 4th to the beginning of the 5th, which was huge value, especially when you consider the fact that James Robinson was going to be injured at the beginning of the offseason. They didn't draft anyone of significance. Travis Etienne was going to be getting all the carries and all the touches. As we look forward at what's going to be happening this year, there's already reports out of camp that Travis Etienne is the absolute star of the Jaguars training camp so far. They're lining him up all over the field. He's getting the receiving work. He's getting the carries. That's exactly what we want to hear. Of course, the preseason games are coming up this Thursday, which is super exciting. So hopefully we will get a little bit more clarity as what Travis Etienne's role is going to be, especially until James Robinson comes back. Even when James Robinson comes back, I am not worried at all. The thing with Travis Etienne is if he gets 15 touches a game, he's going to finish as RB1 in fantasy football for this year. If he can get, let's say he gets 4 to 5 catches and he gets 10 carries, that's enough volume to get him to where he needs to be a high-end, like I said, RB1 in fantasy football. We have to remember the fact that he did run a 4.5 and the NFL Combine as a rookie. Of course, had that Liz Frank injury that kept him out of all last offseason. If we looked at the way he's built exactly like DeAndre Swift, and that is the upside that we want. We want a receiving back that has the work, has the ability to be a workhorse back, but it's not going to necessarily be needed to be used that way, and that is going to be Travis Etienne. They've already mentioned some reports that he might potentially even be like a Debo. So those are the kind of players that I'm wanting, especially when you can get him at the back end of the 3rd. Let's say if you can get him in the back end of the 3rd, in the 1st round you go Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, come back around in the 2nd, get an Aaron Jones or Saquon Barkley, and you need that 2nd running back in the 3rd. Travis Etienne is a perfect option for you that I think will help you win your fantasy football leagues in 2022 redraft fantasy football. My second must-draft fantasy football player is going to be Ceedee Lamb. Now, Ceedee Lamb, a lot to be said about Ceedee Lamb, especially coming into this offseason. They let go of Amari Cooper, trade him to the Cleveland Browns. Amari Cooper held a majority of the target share last year. Ceedee Lamb comes in as a really hyped-up rookie in 2020 and actually averaged 13.6 fantasy points per game, had 111 targets, and that was super impressive. If we look at his total target share last year, he actually had a 20.6% target share. So nothing great, but a 20% target share to end up on a fantasy points per game basis as wide receiver 18 is super impressive. If we look at going into this year, what do they have? Michael Gallup is still recovering from an injury. Of course, Dalton Schultz is there. They drafted Jalen Tolbert, but there's no one that's necessarily going to be competing with Ceedee Lamb in that wide receiver 1 role. And that is why I'm super excited for Ceedee Lamb, especially when you consider the fact that you're getting this high upside wide receiver in the middle of the 2nd round. Right now on Underdog, he is going somewhere around pick 14 to 16, depending on how you look at it. And I think that's the perfect range. Of course, he's still behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. But as a wide receiver 4, he does have that upside to get all the target share. And we've seen the talent. We have seen the talent. We just haven't seen the consistent volume to then elevate Ceedee Lamb into that same type of conversation. So especially as someone that owns him in a lot of dynasty leagues, I'm hoping really badly that Ceedee Lamb performs for us this year. But based on some of the target share numbers, what's removed from the offense, I think Ceedee Lamb has a great chance at being a solid buy. So if you're looking in the 2nd round, you want running back in the 1st round, and you want to either maybe double up on wide receiver if you did draft a receiver in the 1st round, or you just want him as your wide receiver 1, I think Ceedee Lamb is the perfect opportunity to get you over the top and has that upside. My 3rd must-draft fantasy football player for 2022 is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, if you just heard that and your mind kind of went off like, why is he saying Juju Smith-Schuster? It's all because of this one reason. Juju Smith-Schuster is a baller, and Juju Smith-Schuster has proven that he has elite upside. Now, I know what you're going to say to me. Caleb, that was his 2nd year in the league. That was back in 2018. It's been a few years since 2018, and he had Antonio Brown playing next to him, so he wasn't even the alpha. I hear you on all of those accounts. Those are all valid. But the thing that we have to remember about Juju is he had a crazy breakout age. Juju Smith-Schuster was only 21 years old when he broke out. people were comparing Juju Smith-Schuster to where we're looking at Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson now. Juju Smith-Schuster, as a Pittsburgh Steeler, had to be competing with targets with Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Antonio Brown his whole career. If we look at even what he did last year, granted he did only play 5 games, but he did have 15 receptions for 129 yards. He averaged only 7 fantasy points per game, which was not great. So last year was just a brutal year for Juju all around with the injury and then his lack of performance in his first 5 games. But if we go back to 2020, he played 16 games, had 128 targets for 97 receptions, 803 receiving yards, which is super low for the amount of receptions that he had, for an 8.6 yards per reception, and had 9 total touchdowns, which really carried him. And he ended up with 14.6 fantasy points per game, and that put him as the wide receiver 24 on a points per game basis. Now, if we look at the target share, that was only at a 15% target share. What happens this offseason? Of course, he signs only a 1-year deal, a 1-year prove-it deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's now going to play with Patrick Mahomes, which is 100% better than Big Ben was at the end of his career if you were watching the last year of Big Ben and his noodle arm. And what happens? I know Tyreek Hill leaves, and all of a sudden everyone says, oh, no, Juju Smith-Schuster, we loved him as a wide receiver too, but now I don't know how I feel about him. Is he going to be the wide receiver 1? With the Chiefs, I don't know. They signed MVS. They drafted Sky Moore. They have Travis Kelce. Of course, Juju Smith-Schuster is not going to out-target Travis Kelce by any means. But who is Patrick Mahomes going to throw to? I'm going to post this right here. But Patrick Mahomes is like one that throws to the slot. He's one of the top 5 NFL quarterbacks that actually targets the slot wide receivers. What does this mean? It means Juju as a slot wide receiver is going to be getting a lot of targets. And when you have Travis Kelce on one side taking up attention, and you potentially have MVS or Sky Moore going vertical down the field, it's going to leave a lot of the other side of the field open, and I think Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be able to take advantage of that. If Juju Smith-Schuster, let's say he just increases his air yards from, let's go back to the 2020 season, where he had 735 air yards when he was averaging 14.6 fantasy points per game. Let's say he increases that to 900. All of a sudden, he gets 128 targets for 97 receptions, and you're looking at about an 1,000-yard receiver. That is something that I think is very doable for Juju, and where you're having to draft him in your best ball drafts or your redraft leagues is not super high. You can get him in the middle of the 5th round. You're getting him at the 506. His ADP has gotten up here in recent weeks. There has been a lot of hype videos. I know there's been a few videos of him doing spectacular catches in training camp, so that is definitely rising him up the ranks. But the fact that you're getting a piece of this Kansas City Chiefs offense, which I know they got rid of Tyreek Hill, but they're still going to be really explosive because you do have Andy Reid calling the shots, and of course you have Patrick Mahomes. And if you look at the splits, when Patrick Mahomes has had Tyreek Hill, when he hasn't had Tyreek Hill, he performs about the same. So those are the things that I'm considering when I'm drafting Juju in the 5th round. If you can get Juju Smith-Schuster as your wide receiver 3 on your fantasy football team, I'm feeling great, especially if you have him in your flex. Now, maybe as a wide receiver 2, might be feeling a little bit risky about that. Risque, to be said. But I think Juju Smith-Schuster definitely has that upside to take you to where you want to be. We want to take those late shots on guys, especially if you're going running back heavy early in the draft, to be able to take advantage of those guys that have the high upside. And I think his upside is wide receiver 14, wide receiver 13, maybe not a wide receiver 1, but a high-end wide receiver 2. And those are the type of moves that you have to make, especially in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round that end up winning your fantasy football leagues. Please like and subscribe. Would really appreciate it. I'm going to be releasing a lot more content as we kind of come up to the season. Thursday, it is our favorite Hall of Fame game, so we're looking forward to that. And let me know what you think down in the comments. Are you buying Juju Smith-Schuster here in redraft fantasy leagues this year? Let me know.